Chapter 1. The Invitation to Hawthorne Manor. The rain pattered softly against the windows of Hercule Poirot's London flat, a rhythmic accompaniment to the crackling fire in the hearth. The detective sat in his armchair, a cup of tisane steaming in his hand, his moustache impeccably trimmed as always. It was a rare evening of tranquillity, the kind Poirot cherished for organizing his thoughts, his little grey cells at rest. Yet, as was often the case, tranquillity was fleeting. A sharp rap at the door announced the arrival of a letter, delivered by the evening post. Poirot's landlady, Mrs. Hudson, bustled in, her cheeks flushed from the damp. "A letter for you, Monsieur Poirot," she said, handing him a cream-coloured envelope sealed with a wax crest. "Looks important from the countryside, I reckon." Poirot's eyes gleamed with curiosity as he examined the envelope. The crest bore an intricate H, entwined with a serpent swallowing its own tail, an Ouroboros, a symbol of cycles and eternity. With a delicate flick of his letter opener, he extracted a single sheet of paper, written in a precise, almost mechanical hand. "Cher Monsieur Poirot," it began, "your reputation as the finest detective in England precedes you. I, Sir Reginald Hawthorne, cordially invite you to my estate, Hawthorne Manor, for a weekend gathering on the 15th of October. I have a matter of utmost importance to discuss, a scientific discovery that could alter the very fabric of time itself. But beware, there are dangers in tampering with the past that may echo into the future. Your presence is essential. A car will collect you at noon. Yours sincerely, Sir Reginald Hawthorne." Poirot's brow furrowed. The letter was cryptic, its tone a blend of pride and unease. A scientific discovery. Dangers echoing into the future. Most intriguing. He sipped his tisane, his mind already racing. The name Hawthorne was familiar. A wealthy inventor, reclusive, known for eccentric patents in clockwork and optics. But this talk of time piqued Poirot's curiosity most of all. He resolved to accept the invitation, if only to satisfy his need for order in the face of such mystery. The following day, a sleek black Rolls-Royce arrived promptly at noon. Its driver, a taciturn man with a scar above his brow. The journey to the Essex countryside was long, the roads winding through mist-shrouded hills. At last, Hawthorne Manor came into view. A sprawling Tudor estate, its gables looming like silent sentinels against the grey sky. Ivy clung to its stone walls, and the air carried the scent of damp earth and old secrets. As Poirot stepped from the car, he was greeted by the butler, a wiry man with a stiff posture and eyes that darted nervously. "Monsieur Poirot, welcome," he said, bowing. "I am Hastings, no relation to your esteemed friend, I'm afraid. Sir Reginald awaits you in the drawing-room." Poirot noted the coincidence with a wry smile. "Merci, monsieur. Hastings, lead on." The manor's interior was a labyrinth of oak-panelled corridors and flickering gas lamps. In the drawing-room, a fire roared, casting shadows over a gathering of eclectic guests. Sir Reginald Hawthorne stood at the centre, a tall man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. His presence commanded attention, yet his hands trembled slightly as he greeted Poirot. "Monsieur Poirot, an honour," he said, his voice clipped. "Allow me to introduce my family and associates." First was Victor Hawthorne, the nephew, a young man with sharp features and a restless energy. His tailored suit did little to mask his impatience, as if he were perpetually waiting for something owed to him. "Charmed," Victor muttered, barely meeting Poirot's gaze. Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, Sir Reginald's wife, offered a delicate hand. Her beauty was striking, but her eyes held a guarded sorrow. as if she carried a burden unspoken. "We've heard much of your methods, monsieur," she said softly. Dr. Mortimer, a rival scientist, stood apart, his bald head gleaming under the chandelier. His smile was thin, his handshake cold. "I'm here for Reginald's little demonstration," he said, his tone laced with skepticism. Others milled about. Eliza, a nervous maid who avoided eye contact. A dour cousin, Margaret, clutching a prayer book. And a few minor guests, business partners and distant relatives. Poirot's keen eyes scanned them all, noting tensions. Victor's sidelong glances at his uncle, Lady Evelyn's forced smile, Dr. Mortimer's clenched jaw. As drinks were served, Poirot's attention was drawn to a peculiar object in the hall, a grandfather clock, its hands ticking backwards at. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, stroking his moustache. "A clock that defies time itself. Most curious." Sir Reginald overheard and chuckled. "A trifle, Monsieur Poirot. A prototype of my work. Tomorrow you shall see the true marvel." Dinner was a tense affair with stilted conversation punctuated by clinking cutlery. Victor argued with Doctor, Mortimer over scientific ethics, while Lady Evelyn deflected questions about her husband's health. Poirot observed, saying little, his mind cataloguing every gesture, every word. As the evening drew to a close, Sir Reginald raised a glass. "To progress," he toasted, "and to those who dare to challenge the order of things." Poirot sipped his wine, his eyes narrowing. The toast felt like a prelude to chaos. As he retired to his room, the backwards ticking clock echoed in his mind, a harbinger of the mystery to come. Something was amiss at Hawthorne Manor, and Hercule Poirot was determined to uncover it. Chapter 2. The Midnight Scream. The wind howled outside Hawthorne Manor, rattling the ancient windows as Hercule Poirot settled into his guest room. The four-poster bed creaked under the weight of heavy quilts, and a single candle flickered on the bedside table, casting long shadows across the oak-panelled walls. Poirot, ever meticulous, had arranged his toiletries with precision, his moustache wax and comb aligned perfectly. He sat at a small writing desk, reviewing Sir Reginald's cryptic letter by candlelight, his mind turning over the evening's observations. The backwards ticking clock in the hall gnawed at him, an anomaly that defied his love of order. "Quel mystère," he murmured, stroking his moustache. "Time itself plays tricks in this house." As the manor's grandfather clock struck 11, its chimes oddly discordant, Poirot prepared for bed. He had just extinguished the candle when a piercing scream shattered the silence, slicing through the night like a blade. It was a sound of raw terror, unmistakable, emanating from the heart of the manor. Poirot sprang to his feet, slipping on his dressing gown with surprising agility for a man of his fastidious nature. He seized his pocket torch and stepped into the corridor, where doors were already creaking open. Victor Hawthorne emerged first, his nightshirt askew, a wild look in his eyes. "What the devil was that?" he demanded, his voice trembling. Lady Evelyn followed, her face pale beneath her lace nightcap, clutching a shawl tightly. Dr. Mortimer appeared, his bald head glistening with sweat, muttering about damned disturbances. The butler, Hastings, materialized with a lantern, his calm demeanor betrayed by twitching fingers. Other guests, Margaret, the dour cousin, and Eliza the maid, huddled near the staircase, their whispers frantic. "It came from the study," Hastings said, pointing down the darkened hall. "Sir Reginald's study." Poirot took charge, his voice steady. "Allons-y, we must investigate at once. Stay together, s'il vous plaît." His torch beam cut through the gloom as he led the group toward the west wing. The study door, heavy oak with an ornate brass handle, loomed ahead. Poirot tested it, locked. He pressed his ear to the wood, but heard only silence. "The key," he said sharply. "Is it inside?" Hastings nodded, his face ashen. "Sir Reginald always locks it from within when he works late." Victor pounded on the door. "Uncle, open the door!" No response came. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he examined the keyhole. A glint of metal confirmed the key was indeed inside. "We must break it down," he declared. Victor and Dr. Mortimer shouldered the door, wood splintering until it gave way with a groan. The study was a scene of chaos frozen in time. Sir Reginald Hawthorne slumped over his desk, a pool of blood spreading beneath him, staining papers and a leather blotter. An antique dagger, its hilt encrusted with emeralds, protruded from his back. The room smelled of ink and iron. Poirot's gaze swept the scene, noting every detail. A shattered ink bottle, its contents pooling in a way that seemed to defy gravity, drying from the edges inward. A chair overturned, but oddly positioned as if pushed away from the desk. And, most peculiar, footprints in the dust near the window, leading out, but not in. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot whispered, kneeling to examine the body. Sir Reginald's eyes were wide, frozen in shock, his hand clutching a scrap of paper with backwards scrawled letters. Emmet! The word puzzled Poirot, time spelled backwards. He straightened, his mind racing. Lady Evelyn stifled a sob, clinging to the doorframe. "He's dead?" she gasped, her voice breaking. Victor swore under his breath, his fists clenched. Dr. Mortimer, peering over Poirot's shoulder, muttered, "What kind of madness is this?" Poirot raised a hand for silence. "Calmez-vous. We must observe, not react." He approached the window, its latch undone, the curtains fluttering in the night breeze. The footprints in the dust were clear, deep impressions leading to the window, but none approaching. "Impossible," he murmured. "A murderer who walks backwards from their crime." Hastings, trembling, spoke up. "Sir Reginald was working on his device tonight. He said it was nearly complete." "The Chronos reversal machine?" Poirot asked, recalling the blueprints glimpsed earlier. "Yes, sir," Hastings replied. "He locked himself in to protect it." Poirot's eyes darted to the desk, where a strange brass contraption sat, its gears exposed, a faint hum emanating from it. He chose not to touch it, yet. Instead, he addressed the group. "No one leaves this house. We are all suspects until I say otherwise." Victor bristled. "Suspects? I was in my room." "As was I," Dr. Mortimer snapped. "This is preposterous." Lady Evelyn's voice was barely audible. "Who could do this to him?" Poirot's gaze was steely. "That, madame, is what Hercule Poirot will discover. Now return to your rooms, lock your doors. I will examine this crime étrange alone." As the guests dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the silent manor, Poirot lingered, his torch illuminating the backwards footprints. The scream, the locked door, the impossible clues, all pointed to a puzzle unlike any he had faced. The little grey cells, they must work swiftly, he thought, for time itself seemed to be the murderer's accomplice. Chapter 3. Interrogating the Heirs. The morning after the murder, Hawthorne Manor was cloaked in a heavy fog, as if the estate itself mourned Sir Reginald's death. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing-room, its velvet curtains drawn to dim the grey light. A fire crackled, but the air remained chill, mirroring the tension among the gathered guests. Poirot had requested their presence, his demeanour calm yet commanding, his moustache impeccably groomed despite the late-night investigation. Inspector Japp, summoned by telegram, had not yet arrived, leaving Poirot to begin unravelling the mystery alone. He paced before the fireplace, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes scanning the faces of Victor Hawthorne, Lady Evelyn, Dr. Mortimer, and the butler, Hastings. Each bore the weight of suspicion, their expressions a mix of grief, fear, and defiance. "Monsieur Poirot, this is absurd," Victor snapped, slouching in an armchair, his dark hair dishevelled. "Questioning us like common criminals. I'm his nephew, for heaven's sake." Poirot raised a finger, his voice measured. "Monsieur Victor, in a murder, no one is above scrutiny, not even family. Now tell me, where were you when the scream pierced the night?" Victor shifted, his jaw tight. "In the library, reading." "A book on quantum physics. Uncle's obsession rubbed off, I suppose. I heard the scream and came running, like everyone else." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And this book, it held your attention so completely? You heard nothing before the scream? No footsteps, no voices?" Victor hesitated, his fingers drumming on the armrest. "Nothing. The house was quiet." "Curieux," Poirot murmured, noting the pause. He turned to Lady Evelyn, who sat rigid on a settee, her hands clasped tightly. "Madame, your husband was working late on his device. Did he confide in you about its purpose?" Lady Evelyn's eyes, red-rimmed from crying, met Poirot's briefly before dropping. "Reginald was consumed by it. The Chronos reversal machine, he called it. He said it could reverse moments, whatever that means. We argued about it often. It kept him from me, from us." Her voice cracked, but she straightened, regaining composure. "I was in my room, preparing for bed, when I heard the scream." Poirot nodded, his gaze lingering on her trembling hands. "And you saw no one in the corridor? Heard nothing unusual?" "Nothing," she whispered, though her eyes flickered toward Victor. Dr. Mortimer, standing by the window, scoffed. "This is a waste of time, Poirot. I was in my guest room, asleep, until that infernal scream woke me. Reginald and I had our differences, professional rivalry, nothing more. I didn't kill him." Poirot tilted his head. "Monsieur le Docteur, your rivalry was well known. Sir Reginald's patents surpassed yours, n'est-ce pas? A motive, perhaps, for one less scrupulous?" Mortimer's face reddened. "Preposterous! I'm a scientist, not a murderer." "Bien sûr," Poirot said smoothly, turning to Hastings, who hovered near the door. "And you, Monsieur Hastings, where were you when your master met his end?" The butler's hands twitched, adjusting his cuffs. "In the servants' quarters, sir, polishing silver. I heard the scream and rushed to the study as I told you." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Polishing silver at midnight. A most dedicated servant." Hastings flushed. "It's my duty, sir." Poirot stepped to the centre of the room, producing the scrap of paper found clutched in Sir Reginald's hand. The word Emmett was scrawled in reverse, as if written in a mirror. "This note," he said, holding it aloft, "was in the victim's grasp. Does it mean anything to any of you?" Silence fell, broken only by the fire's crackle. Victor shrugged. Lady Evelyn shook her head, and Dr. Mortimer's eyes darted away. Hastings stared at the floor. Poirot tucked the note into his pocket, his mind cataloguing their reactions. Très intéressant. A word that is time spelled backwards, in a house where clocks run in reverse. A coincidence? Poirot thinks not. He paced again, his voice deliberate. Sir Reginald spoke of a device that alters time. Madame, you said he was consumed by it. Did he share its secrets? Lady Evelyn hesitated. Only that it was dangerous. He feared someone might misuse it. He mentioned a riddle in his will, something about living backwards to claim his fortune. Victor's head snapped up. A riddle? Why wasn't I told?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, "because your uncle did not trust you, Monsieur Victor, or anyone." He turned to the group. "Each of you had access to the study via the manor's passages. Each of you had reason to resent Sir Reginald, his wealth, his genius, his secrets, but only one held the dagger." The room tensed. Margaret, the cousin who had been silent, clutched her prayer book and whispered, "This house is cursed. Time itself rebels here." Poirot smiled faintly. "No, mademoiselle, not a curse, but a puzzle, and Hercule Poirot will solve it." As the guests dispersed, their alibis shaky and motives unclear, Poirot lingered by the fireplace. The backwards note, the reversed footprints, the ticking clock, all pointed to a crime that defied logic. The little grey cells, they must work harder, he thought, for the truth lay hidden in the shadows of time itself. Chapter 4. The Reversed Footprints. The fog had thickened around Hawthorne Manor by mid-morning, shrouding the estate in a ghostly veil that muffled sound and blurred the horizon. Hercule Poirot stood in the garden just outside Sir Reginald's study window, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the damp soil. The air carried a sharp chill, and he adjusted his overcoat, his eyes fixed on the peculiar trail before him. Footprints clear and deep, leading away from the window toward the woods, but none approaching. It was as if the murderer had materialized inside the study and walked backwards to escape. "Impossible," Poirot muttered, his moustache twitching. "Yet the impossible is merely the improbable not yet understood." Inspector Japp had arrived at dawn, his ruddy face set in a scowl as he surveyed the crime scene. "Morning, Poirot," he said, rubbing his hands against the cold. "This is a queer one. Locked room, backwards footprints, and that blasted dagger. What's your take?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon ami, the clues are like a symphony played in reverse. We must listen carefully to find the melody." He knelt beside the footprints, noting their size, large, likely a man's, and the curious way the heel marks were, deeper at the window's end, as if the walker had been stepping backwards. He produced a small magnifying glass, examining the soil. "Mud, fresh from last night's rain, and voila!" He pointed to a faint smear of green algae, likely from the nearby pond. "Our killer passed through wet terrain." Japp grunted, scribbling in his notebook. "So, they came from the woods, not the house?" "No," Poirot corrected. "They left toward the woods. There are no prints leading to the window. A most curious paradox." The two men followed the trail, which wound through the garden's manicured hedges and into a copse of ancient oaks. The footprints stopped abruptly at a clearing, where the soil gave way to gravel. Japp scratched his head. "Vanished into thin air. This case'll be the death of me, Poirot." Poirot's gaze swept the clearing, landing on a discarded cigarette butt, its tip still faintly warm. "Pas tout à fait, Inspector. Someone was here and recently." He pocketed the butt, his mind turning to the guest's habits. Victor smoked, he recalled, but so did Dr. Mortimer. A clue, perhaps, but not definitive. Back at the manor, Poirot enlisted Eliza, the nervous maid, to guide him through the garden's layout. Her hands trembled as she pointed out paths, her eyes darting toward the woods. "There's talk of a curse, sir," she whispered. "The Hawthorns, they've always been meddling with things best left alone. My gran said there was a murder here, years ago, just as strange." Poirot's smile was indulgent. "Mademoiselle Eliza, curses are but stories we tell to explain the inexplicable. Tell me, did you see anyone in the garden last night?" Eliza hesitated, then shook her head. "No, sir, but I heard whispers near the study before the scream. Couldn't make out words, but they sounded angry." "Merci," Poirot said, dismissing her gently. Her words lingered, whispers anger. A confrontation, perhaps, before the fatal blow. He returned to the study where Japp was examining the window latch, now confirmed to be unforced. The room remained as it was. The overturned chair, the ink pooling inward, the backward scrawled note reading AMIT. Poirot's attention turned to the brass contraption on the desk, the Chronos reversal machine. Its gears were still, but a faint hum suggested latent energy. He dared not touch it, but its presence loomed large. "Japp," Poirot said, "consider this. The footprints suggest the killer left the study, yet the locked door and key inside suggest no one entered. Could the crime itself be reversed?" Japp blinked. "Reversed? You mean like time running backwards? That's madness, Poirot." "Pas du tout," Poirot replied. "It is a trick, a deception to confound us. The killer wishes us to believe in the impossible." He paced, his little grey cells humming. "We must question the alibis again, but first, the mud." Japp sent constables to collect soil samples from the pond and woods, while Poirot interrogated the guests about their shoes. Victor's boots were suspiciously clean, though he claimed to have walked the grounds earlier. Dr. Mortimer's shoes bore traces of mud, but he insisted it was from a morning stroll. Lady Evelyn, pale and withdrawn, claimed to have stayed indoors all night. Hastings, ever dutiful, produced polished shoes, but admitted to tending the garden path at dusk. As noon approached, Poirot stood alone by the window. The backwards footprints mocking his logic. "The little grey cells, they see a pattern," he murmured. "A murderer who leaves no trace of arrival. A note that speaks of time reversed. This is no ordinary crime." The fog seemed to whisper back, urging him to unravel the truth hidden in the manor's shadows. Chapter 5. Secrets of the Time Device. The morning sun filtered through the heavy drapes of Hawthorne Manor, casting long shadows across the inventor's workshop. Hercule Poirot stood amidst a clutter of gears, wires, and strange contraptions. His gloved hands delicately lifting a set of blueprints labelled Chronos Reversal Machine. The room smelled of oil and ozone, a testament to Sir Reginald Hawthorne's obsessive genius. The little Belgian detective's moustache twitched as he studied the intricate diagrams, his grey cells humming with curiosity. Beside him, Inspector Japp scratched his head, muttering about the absurdity of it all, while Victor, Lady Evelyn, and Dr. Mortimer hovered near the doorway, their faces a mix of unease and fascination. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, tracing a finger along a schematic of coiled copper and glowing vacuum tubes. "This device, it claims to bend time itself. Un moment retourné, a moment reversed. But such a thing, is it possible?" His sharp eyes flicked to Dr. Mortimer, whose fingers fidgeted with a pocket watch. The scientist's rivalry with Sir Reginald was no secret, and Poirot noted the man's pallor. "It's theoretical nonsense," Dr. Mortimer snapped, though his voice wavered. "Reginald was a dreamer, not a scientist. His so-called machine was a parlour trick at best." Yet his gaze lingered on the prototype, a boxy contraption with dials and a glass dome, sitting on a workbench. Poirot raised an eyebrow. "A parlour trick, you say? Then why, monsieur, did Sir Reginald guard it so fiercely?" He turned to Lady Evelyn, whose silk shawl trembled slightly. "Madame, you knew of this invention's progress, no? What did your husband say of its dangers?" Lady Evelyn's lips tightened. He said it could unravel moments, make the past present again, but it frightened him. He spoke of accidents, tests that went wrong." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He wouldn't let me near it." Victor, lounging against a cabinet, scoffed. "Uncle was mad. All this talk of time loops and reversing fate, it's why he locked himself away. Probably drove someone to stab him. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Perhaps, Monsieur Victor, but the question is who and why. He approached the prototype, its surface etched with cryptic symbols. Inspector, assist me, s'il vous plaît. With Japp's reluctant help, Poirot activated the device, turning a dial as per the blueprint's instructions. A low hum filled the room, and the air seemed to shimmer. A teacup, precariously balanced on a nearby shelf, toppled, shattered on the floor. And then, to gasps from all, its fragments quivered and reassembled. The cup whole again. "Blimey!" Japp exclaimed, stepping back. "That's unnatural." "Non, non," Poirot corrected, his eyes gleaming. "It is science, most ingenious, but science in the wrong hands." He turned off the device, the hum fading. This machine, it could make a man appear to act before he intends, or undo what was done. A perfect alibi, perhaps? Dr. Mortimer flushed. "Are you accusing me, Poirot?" "I've no need for Reginald's toys. My own work, your work, monsieur, which Sir Reginald claimed you stole," Poirot interjected smoothly. "A motive, no? To silence him before he exposed you?" The scientist sputtered, but Poirot waved a hand. "We shall see." The detective turned to a locked safe in the corner, its dial marked with backwards numerals. Using a sequence gleaned from the blueprints, he opened it, revealing a single document, Sir Reginald's will. It declared his fortune and the Chronos device would go to he who solves the riddle of backwards living. Poirot's lips curved. "A challenge, mes amis. The killer may have sought not just revenge, but this prize." As they left the workshop, Poirot lingered, noticing a faint scratch on the device's casing. A mark not of accident, but of deliberate tampering. "The little grey cells," they whisper, he murmured to himself. "This machine, it holds the key to the murder's backwards dance." Chapter 6. Alibis in Reverse. The afternoon light struggled through the fog, casting a dim glow over Hawthorne Manor's drawing room, where Hercule Poirot had gathered the suspects once more. The air was thick with unease, the crackling fire doing little to warm the tense atmosphere. Poirot stood before the group. Victor Hawthorne, Lady Evelyn, Dr. Mortimer, Hastings the butler, and the timid maid Eliza. His hands clasped behind his back, his moustache a perfect curve of resolve. Inspector Japp leaned against the mantelpiece, his notebook open, his expression a mix of frustration and curiosity. The backwards footprints, the locked study, and the cryptic note AMIT had deepened the mystery, and Poirot was determined to unravel the tangled alibis that seemed to defy time itself. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice steady, "the murder of Sir Reginald is a puzzle most peculiar. Your alibis, they do not align. They twist like a clock running backwards. Let us revisit the night of the scream." Victor slouched in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "I've told you, Poirot, I was in the library, reading, heard the scream at midnight, then ran to the study. That's it." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "Monsieur Victor, you say midnight, yet Eliza claims she heard the scream before the clock struck 11. A discrepancy, no?" He turned to the maid, who fidgeted with her apron. Eliza's voice trembled. I swear, sir, it was before 11. I was in the kitchen, tidying up. The scream came, and then the clock chimed later. I'm sure of it." "Impossible!" Dr. Mortimer snapped, his bald head gleaming under the chandelier. "I heard it at midnight, clear as day. I was in my room, reviewing notes. You're mistaken, girl." Poirot raised a hand. "Patience, doctor. Let us consider Lady Evelyn." "Madam, You were in your room preparing for bed. Did you hear the scream at 11 or midnight?" Lady Evelyn's hands twisted in her lap, her face pale. "Midnight, I believe. I was brushing my hair when it woke me. I can't be certain. It was all so sudden." Poirot's eyes flicked to Hastings, who stood rigidly by the door. "And you, Monsieur Hastings, polishing silver at midnight, oui? Yet you reached the study so quickly. Did you hear anything before?" Hastings swallowed, his fingers adjusting his cuffs. "Just the scream, sir. I was in the servants' quarters, as I said. Ran straight to the master's study." Poirot paced, his mind weaving the threads. "Curieux. One says 11, another midnight. And then there is Margaret, the cousin, who claims she saw shadows moving in the hall, moving backwards, she says, before the scream." He paused, noting Margaret's tight grip on her prayer book, her lips moving silently. A most disordered timeline. Japp coughed. "Poirot, this is madness. People misremember times in a panic. What's this about backward shadows?" "Précisément, Inspector," Poirot replied. "The scream, the shadows, the footprints, all suggest a crime played in reverse. But Hercule Poirot does not believe in miracles. There is a trick here, a deception." He produced the cigarette butt from the clearing, holding it aloft. "This, found where the footprints ended. Who among you smokes?" Victor flushed, patting his pockets. "I do, but I wasn't in the garden last night. Could have been anyone's." Dr. Mortimer shrugged. "I smoke occasionally. Doesn't prove anything." Poirot's smile was faint. "No, but it narrows the field." He turned to the group. "There is more. The manor has hidden passages, oui? Hastings, you know this house well. Speak." Hastings hesitated, then nodded. "There are old passages, sir, from the manor's smuggling days. One leads from the study to the east wing, near the servants' quarters." A murmur rippled through the group. Victor shot to his feet. "You're saying someone could have sneaked in and out? Why? Didn't you mention this before?" Hastings's face reddened. I didn't think it relevant, sir. They're dusty, unused. Relevant?" Poirot's voice was sharp. "In a locked-room murder, all is relevant." He turned to Japp. "We must inspect these passages. They may explain the absence of entry footprints." As Japp organized a search, Poirot's attention shifted to a new revelation. Eliza, hovering near the door, whispered, "Sir, I didn't want to say before, but I found something in the library yesterday." A note slipped under a book Victor was reading. It said, "Pay or he dies." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon Dieu, a blackmail note. Show me, vite." Eliza led him to the library, where she retrieved a crumpled paper from a shelf. The handwriting was different from Sir Reginald's, but the ink matched the study's spilled bottle. Poirot tucked it away, his mind racing. Blackmail suggested Victor's gambling debts, rumoured in the village, but the backwards clues hinted at something deeper. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot faced the group. A motive emerges, greed perhaps or vengeance, but the method, it is a riddle. Why stage a crime to appear reversed, to confuse, to conceal? The little grey cells, they ponder. As the suspects dispersed, their alibis crumbling like sand, Poirot lingered, the backwards note Emmett burning in his mind. The passages, the blackmail, the impossible timeline, all pointed to a killer who played with time itself. "Patience," he murmured, "for the truth hides in the shadows of these lies." Chapter 7. The Hidden Diary. The fog had not lifted from Hawthorne Manor, its tendrils curling around the estate like a shroud, mirroring the secrets buried within its walls. Hercule Poirot stood in Sir Reginald's bedroom, a dimly lit chamber, adorned with heavy drapes and a mahogany bed, its air thick with the scent of old leather and wax. The morning's interrogations had left him with fragmented alibis, and a growing certainty that the key to the backwards murder lay in the victim's own mind. Inspector Japp was downstairs, overseeing constables as they searched the manor's hidden passages, while Poirot, ever methodical, had turned his attention to the personal effects of the late Sir Reginald Hawthorne. "The little grey cells, they demand the truth," he murmured, his moustache twitching as he scanned the room. The bedroom was orderly, almost austere, save for a locked desk drawer that piqued Poirot's curiosity. With a hairpin borrowed from Lady Evelyn, offered reluctantly under his polite insistence, he deftly picked the lock, revealing a leather-bound diary. Its pages were filled with Sir Reginald's precise script, but the words were written in reverse, legible only in a mirror. Poirot held the diary to a nearby looking-glass, his eyes narrowing as he deciphered the first entry. "The Chronos device nears completion, but I fear betrayal. Victoria grows greedy, Evelyn distant, Mortimer envious. The past haunts, and the future threatens." Poirot's pulse quickened. Mon Dieu, a mirror script for a man obsessed with reversal. He read on, the entries detailing experiments with the Chronos reversal machine. One passage stood out. Test 17. A mouse, trapped in a loop, lived its last moments backwards. The implications terrify me. If misused, the device could unravel lives. Another entry hinted at a family secret. The Hawthorne curse, they call it. My grandfather's death, a mirror murder, unsolved. I fear history repeats. As Poirot turned the pages, a loose sheet fell out. A sketch of the manor's passages, with a circled mark near the study. "Aha," he whispered, pocketing the sketch. The diary confirmed Sir Reginald's paranoia, but also his brilliance. The loop experiment suggested the device could manipulate time, perhaps explaining the backwards clues. But who had access to such knowledge? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Lady Evelyn entered, her face pale, her eyes darting to the diary. "Monsieur Poirot, have you found something?" she asked, her voice trembling. Poirot closed the diary, his expression neutral. "Madam, your husband kept secrets, even from you. Did he ever speak of a loop or a family curse?" Evelyn's hands twisted her shawl. "He mentioned the curse once, in passing, a silly tale about his grandfather, killed in a locked room with mirrors all around. As for loops, he said the device could replay moments, but he was vague. I begged him to stop, to destroy it." Her voice broke. "He wouldn't listen." Poirot studied her closely. "And your distance from him, madame?" "The diary suggests a rift." Evelyn's eyes glistened. I strayed, monsieur. An affair, brief and foolish, with a man in London. Reginald found out. He forgave me, but he buried himself in that machine. I feared it would destroy us all." "Merci for your candour," Poirot said softly, though his mind catalogued her confession. A motive, perhaps, jealousy, guilt, or fear of exposure. He excused her, then resumed his search, finding a small key taped to the diary's back cover. It fit a locked box under the bed, which contained a single item, a brass cog, etched with the word Chronos. A component of the device, perhaps sabotaged. Downstairs, Japp reported on the passages. Found one leading from the study to the east wing, just as Hastings said. Dusty, but there's fresh scuff marks. Someone's been through recently. Poirot nodded, showing Japp the diary. Mon ami, Sir Reginald feared betrayal. This diary, written in reverse, speaks of greed, envy, and a past murder. We must question Victor again. His debts, the blackmail note Eliza found, they point to him. They summoned Victor, who stormed in, his face flushed. More accusations, Poirot. I told you, I was in the library." Poirot held up the diary. "Your uncle wrote of your greed, monsieur. And a note threatens death unless a debt is paid. Explain." Victor paled, stammering. I owe money, yes, to some rough types in London, but I didn't kill him. I'd never." "Peut-être," Poirot said, unconvinced, "but someone used the passages. Someone knew of the device's power." He dismissed Victor, his mind turning to Dr. Mortimer. The scientist's rivalry, his access to the workshop. Could he have sabotaged the machine, staging the murder to frame another? As evening fell, Poirot stood by the bedroom window, the fog pressing against the glass. The diary's secrets, betrayal, loops, a mirrored past, wove a web around the suspects. "The truth, it hides in the reversal," he murmured, clutching the brass cog. The backwards clues were no accident. They were a message, and Poirot was determined to decode it before the killer struck again. Chapter 8. The Garden Rendezvous. The fog over Hawthorne Manor had begun to thin, revealing patches of the garden's manicured hedges under a sullen sky. Hercule Poirot stood by the study window, his eyes tracing the backwards footprints that led from the sill to the woods. The morning's discoveries, the mirror-script diary, the blackmail note, the etched cog, had tightened the web of suspicion, but the puzzle of the backwards murder remained unsolved. Determined to test his theories, Poirot had summoned the suspects to the garden for a reenactment of the killer's supposed escape. Inspector Japp, ever skeptical, adjusted his hat and muttered, "This better yield something, Poirot. I'm not one for theatrics." "Mon ami," Poirot replied, his moustache twitching. "The theatrics, they reveal the truth hidden in plain sight. Observe." He positioned the group, Victor, Lady Evelyn, Dr. Mortimer, Hastings, and Eliza, near the window, their faces a mix of apprehension and defiance. Poirot began, his voice clear. "Mesdames et messieurs, the footprints suggest the killer fled backwards from this window. Let us recreate this impossibility. Monsieur Victor, you are young and agile. Walk backwards from here to the hedge, as if retracing the path." Victor scowled but complied, stepping awkwardly backwards, his boots sinking into the soft earth. The group watched as he stumbled slightly, his movements unnatural. Poirot's keen eyes noted the fresh prints, similar in size but lacking the precise heel depth of the originals. "Interessant," he murmured, then turned to Dr. Mortimer. "Docteur, your turn." Mortimer, his bald head glistening with sweat, protested. "This is absurd! I'm a scientist, not a circus performer." Yet, under Poirot's insistent gaze, he shuffled backwards, his steps more deliberate but still awkward. The prints again differed, too shallow. Lady Evelyn and Hastings declined to try, citing propriety and duty, but Eliza, trembling, managed a few steps before stopping, her face pale. As the reenactment faltered, sudden movement caught Poirot's eye. Hastings, lingering near the hedge, bent to pick up a small object, a glinting shard of glass, perhaps from a broken lens. He slipped it into his pocket, but Poirot's sharp voice stopped him. "Monsieur Hastings, what have you found? Show it, s'il vous plaît." Hastings froze, then reluctantly produced the shard. "Just litter, sir. Thought to tidy it." Poirot examined the glass, its edge etched with a faint C, possibly from the Chronos device. "Litter? No. A clue, perhaps?" He pocketed it, his mind racing. Had Hastings tampered with evidence, or was he merely nervous? The butler's quick action suggested more than loyalty. Japp, impatient, called for a break, but Poirot pressed on, leading the group to the clearing where the footprints ended. There, he noticed a fresh disturbance in the gravel, a scuff mark, as if someone had recently kicked stones aside. "Regarde," he said, pointing. "Someone returned here after the murder. To hide something, perhaps?" Before anyone could respond, Victor bolted toward the woods, shouting, "I've had enough of this nonsense!" Poirot, surprisingly swift, signaled Japp, who tackled the young man before he reached the trees. A search of Victor's pockets revealed a crumpled betting slip, dated the day before, with a sum large enough to ruin him. "Monsieur Victor," Poirot said, "your debts grow clearer, as does your desperation." Victor struggled, his face red. "I didn't kill him, I swear it." "Peut-être," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing, "but you flee like a guilty man." As Japp restrained Victor, Poirot's attention shifted to a glint in the grass. A pocket watch, its hands frozen and wound backwards, pointing to 11 o'clock. He lifted it carefully, noting its monogram. R.H. Sir Reginald's. Mon Dieu, he whispered. A watch stopped in reverse, left here deliberately. A message or sabotage? Returning to the manor, Poirot confronted Dr. Mortimer privately. "Doctor, you know the Chronos device. Could it manipulate objects, like this watch, to appear reversed?" Mortimer hesitated, his eyes darting. "Theoretically, yes. Reginald's experiments could alter small events, make a clock tick backwards, a glass reform, but it's unstable, dangerous." "Dangerous enough to kill for?" Poirot asked, his voice sharp. Mortimer paled. "I wanted his research, not his life." As dusk fell, Poirot stood alone in the garden, the backwards watch in his hand. The glass shard, the scuff marks, Victor's flight, all pointed to a plot deeper than greed. "The little grey cells, they see a pattern," he murmured. The killer had staged a backwards crime, using the device's secrets to confound. But Poirot was closing in, and the garden's shadows would soon yield their truth. Chapter 9. Echoes from the past. The fog over Hawthorne Manor had lifted slightly, but a heavy stillness hung in the air as if the estate itself held its breath. Hercule Poirot stood in the manor's library, its shelves towering with leather-bound tomes and dusty journals. The scent of aged paper mingling with the faint tang of polish. The backwards footprints, the mirror-script diary, and the reversed watch had deepened the mystery of Sir Reginald's murder, pointing to a killer who wielded time as a weapon. Poirot's little grey cells buzzed, sensing that the past held answers to the present crime. Inspector Japp, nursing a cup of tea, watched as Poirot pored over a stack of family records, determined to uncover the Hawthorne curse Eliza had mentioned. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming, "the diary spoke of a murder long ago, a mirror murder in this very manor. We must understand this history to unravel the present." Japp sighed, flipping through his notebook. "Curses and old murders? I'd rather stick to footprints and daggers, Poirot." "Patience," Poirot replied, opening a journal labelled Hawthorne Annals, 1845. The faded pages detailed the death of Sir Reginald's grandfather, Lord Edmund Hawthorne, found stabbed in a locked room lined with mirrors, his body surrounded by shattered glass. The case was unsolved, but rumours of a curse, a reversal of fate, had haunted the family since. One entry, written by Edmund's brother, noted, "The mirrors showed his death backwards, as if time itself rebelled." Poirot's moustache twitched. Mon Dieu, a parallel most striking. A locked room, a blade, and clues defying time. The killer mimics the past, but why? He summoned Eliza, whose nervous demeanour softened in the library's quiet. "Mademoiselle, you spoke of a curse. Tell me more of this tale." Eliza twisted her apron, her voice low. "My gran worked here when I was a girl. She said Lord Edmund was experimenting with optics, mirrors to bend light, maybe time. He died in the West Wing, in a room full of mirrors. Folks said his ghost walks backwards, seeking justice." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And this room, where is it now?" "Sealed off, sir," Eliza replied. "Behind the study, they say. No one's been in since." Poirot exchanged a glance with Japp, who groaned but nodded. They gathered lanterns and headed to the West Wing, where a bricked-up doorway stood, its edges crumbling. With Constable's help, they broke through, revealing a dusty chamber. Mirrors lined the walls, some cracked, reflecting their lantern light in eerie patterns. In the centre lay a shattered frame, its glass etched with the same Ouroboros symbol from Sir Reginald's letter. "C'est incroyable," Poirot murmured, examining the floor. Faint scratches suggested recent movement, though the dust was thick. "Someone has been here, perhaps to stage the present murder as a mirror of the past." Japp coughed in the stale air. "You think the killer's playing ghost? Copying an old crime?" "Précisément," Poirot said, "but not for superstition, for deception." He found a hidden compartment in the mirror frame, containing a yellowed letter from Edmund to his heir. "Beware the reversal of intent. My work must not fall to greed." Returning to the drawing-room, Poirot confronted Lady Evelyn, whose guarded sorrow had deepened. "Madam, your husband knew of this mirror murder. Did he speak of recreating it?" Evelyn's hands trembled. "He was obsessed with his grandfather's work. He said the Chronos device was inspired by Edmund's mirrors, a way to correct the past. I warned him it was dangerous, that it drove him mad. We argued that night. He wanted to reveal it to the guests, but I feared it would ruin us." "Ruin?" Poirot pressed. "Because of its power, or its enemies?" She hesitated. "Both. Dr. Mortimer wanted to steal it. Victor saw it as his inheritance. I just wanted peace." Poirot nodded, dismissing her gently, then turned to Japp. "The past echoes in the present, mon ami. The killer uses this curse to mask their motive, greed, envy, or revenge." He recalled the blackmail note and Victor's debts, but Dr. Mortimer's rivalry loomed larger. Had the scientist staged the backwards clues to frame Victor, using the manor's history? As night fell, Poirot stood by the library window, the Ouroboros symbol etched in his mind. The mirrored room, the reversed clues, the family's secrets, all pointed to a killer who wove history into deception. "The little grey cells, they see the pattern," he murmured. The truth was close, hidden in the manor's mirrored past, and Poirot would not rest until it was reflected clearly. Chapter 10. The Prototype Test. The late afternoon light filtered weakly through Hawthorne Manor's stained-glass windows, casting fractured colours across the workshop where Hercule Poirot stood. The room hummed with the faint energy of Sir Reginald's Chronos reversal machine, its brass gears and crystal core gleaming ominously on the workbench. The backwards footprints, the mirror script diary, and the eerie echoes of the 1845 mirror murder had convinced Poirot that the device held the key to the backwards murder. He had gathered the suspects, Victor Hawthorne, Lady Evelyn, Dr. Mortimer, Hastings and Eliza, in the workshop, their faces a mix of curiosity and dread. Inspector Japp, arms crossed, watched skeptically from the corner, his notebook worn from constant scribbling. Poirot's plan was bold, to test the prototype, hoping its behaviour would expose the killer's method. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice steady, "this machine, the Chronos reversal, is no mere invention. It is perhaps the stage on which our murderer performed their trick. We shall test it, to see how it bends time." Victor snorted, his arms crossed. "You're wasting time, Poirot. That thing's a fancy toy, nothing more." "Toy," Dr. Mortimer snapped, his bald head flushed. "It's a scientific marvel. Reginald was a genius, even if he was a fool to trust it." Poirot raised a hand. "Silence, s'il vous plaît. We proceed with caution." He approached the device, its controls a maze of levers and dials. The blueprints, studied earlier, suggested it could reverse small events, a falling object, a ticking clock within a localized field. Poirot selected a simple test, a porcelain vase from a nearby shelf. He placed it on the floor, then activated the machine, turning a dial marked temporal inversion. A low hum filled the room, the air shimmering faintly. Poirot nudged the vase, and it toppled, shattering into fragments. The group gasped as the machine's hum intensified, and the shards trembled, then reassembled, the vase rising back to its original form, unbroken. Eliza clutched her apron, whispering, "Witchcraft!" Japp's jaw dropped, and even Victor looked unnerved. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot murmured, switching off the device. "It reverses the moment, as Sir Reginald claimed. But could it stage a murder?" Lady Evelyn's voice was faint. "Reginald said it was unstable. He feared it could trap someone in a loop, or worse." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Précisément, madame. An unstable device, a perfect tool for deception." He reset the machine, this time placing Sir Reginald's backwards wound watch inside its field. He activated it, and the room filled with a discordant hum. Suddenly, a faint echo rang out. The scream from the night of the murder, played in reverse, a chilling, guttural sound that froze the group. The watch's hands spun forward, then stopped, its face cracked. "Sacre bleu!" Poirot exclaimed, shutting down the device. "The scream captured and reversed. The killer used this machine, non? To create the illusion of a backwards crime." Dr. Mortimer stepped forward, his face pale. "That's impossible! The device can't manipulate a whole murder. Just small objects, brief moments." "Perhaps," Poirot said, his gaze piercing, "but you, Docteur, knew its capabilities. Did you use it to frame another?" Mortimer stammered, denying it, but his hands shook. Poirot turned to Victor, whose earlier flight in the garden lingered in his mind. "Monsieur Victor, your alibi places you in the library, yet Eliza saw you near the study before the scream. The device could explain the timeline's confusion, oui?" Victor's eyes darted. "I told you! I was reading! I didn't touch that blasted machine." Hastings, silent until now, spoke up. "Sir, the master kept the device locked. Only he had the key, or so he thought." Poirot's brow arched. "Or so he thought." "Explain, Monsieur Hastings." The butler hesitated. "I saw Dr. Mortimer near the workshop days ago, fiddling with the lock. I didn't think much of it then." Mortimer exploded. "Lies! I was inspecting my own work, not stealing his." Chaos erupted, accusations flying, until Poirot clapped his hands sharply. "Enough! The machine reveals the killer's method, a staged reversal, using its power to confuse time. But the motive, greed, envy, or revenge remains." He held up the cracked watch, its hands now pointing to 11 o'clock, the time Eliza claimed for the scream. "This confirms the timeline was manipulated. The killer was in the study with the device." As the group dispersed, Japp pulled Poirot aside. "You're saying the machine faked the whole backwards bit? That's mad, even for you." "Non, mon ami," Poirot said, his eyes distant. "It is brilliant. The killer used science to mock time, but Hercule Poirot will restore order." The reversed scream echoed in his mind, a clue to the killer's identity, now closer than ever. Chapter 11. Confronting the Shadows. Twilight cast long shadows across Hawthorne Manor's drawing room, where Hercule Poirot had assembled the suspects for a final confrontation. The fire roared, its light flickering over the tense faces of Victor Hawthorne, Lady Evelyn, Dr. Mortimer, Hastings the butler, and Eliza the maid. Inspector Japp stood by the door, his arms crossed, ready to act on Poirot's signal. The Chronos reversal machine's test had confirmed its role in staging the backwards murder. But the killer's identity remained elusive. The backwards footprints, the mirror script diary, the reversed scream, all were pieces of a puzzle Poirot's little grey cells were piecing together. Tonight, he would provoke the truth, using psychology as his weapon. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice calm but commanding. The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne is a crime of deception, a masquerade of time itself. The killer used the Chronos device to create an illusion of a backwards crime, but Hercule Poirot sees through the shadows. Victor leaned forward, his jaw tight. "Get to the point, Poirot. You've been hounding us for days. Who did it?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Patience, Monsieur Victor. Let us review. The study was locked, the key inside, yet footprints led away from the window. The scream was heard at conflicting times, 11 by Eliza, midnight by others. The note, Emmet, written in reverse, and the watch, wound backwards, suggest a killer who manipulates perception. But why? Lady Evelyn clutched her shawl, her voice faint. To confuse us, to hide their guilt. Précisément, madame, Poirot said, pacing, but also to point to a motive tied to time itself, a future wrong prevented by a past act. He turned to Doctor Mortimer, whose bald head glistened with sweat. Doctor, you coveted Sir Reginald's device. You were seen near the workshop, tampering with its lock. Did you kill to claim his genius? Mortimer shot to his feet, his face red. I've told you, I only wanted to understand it. I didn't kill him. Poirot raised a hand, silencing him, then faced Victor. Monsieur Victor, your debts are substantial. The blackmail note found by Eliza, pay or he dies, suggests you were desperate. Did you stab your uncle to secure your inheritance, using the device to muddle the timeline? Victor's fists clenched. I'm no murderer. Yes, I owed money, but I'd never hurt him. Poirot turned to Hastings, his gaze piercing. And you, Monsieur Hastings, so loyal. Yet you found a shard of glass in the garden, etched with C. A piece of the Chronos device, perhaps. Did you sabotage it for your own gain? Hastings paled, stammering. I found it by chance, sir. I swear, I only took small things. Silver, a few coins, to help my sick sister. Not murder. Eliza gasped, and Lady Evelyn's eyes widened. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. Merci, Hastings. A confession of theft, but not of murder. Très intéressant. He stepped to the centre, holding up the backwards wound watch. This watch, stopped at 11, matches Eliza's timeline. The scream was real, but the device replayed it later, creating confusion. The killer was in the study at 11, not midnight. Japp coughed. Poirot, you're saying the machine faked the time of death? That's clever, but who held the dagger? Poirot's smile was faint. Mon ami, the dagger is but the final act. Consider the motive. Sir Reginald's will promised his fortune to whoever solved his riddle. Live backwards to claim the future. The killer believed they could outwit time itself. He turned to Lady Evelyn, his voice softening. Madam, your affair caused pain, but you feared the device's power most. Did you act to stop its misuse? Evelyn's hands trembled, tears welling. I begged him to destroy it. It was tearing us apart, but I didn't kill him. I loved him, despite everything." Poirot nodded, then faced the group. "The killer is among you, hiding in plain sight. The backwards clues, footprints, note, scream, were staged to echo the 1845 mirror murder, to make us believe in a curse. But it is no curse. It is human greed, envy, or fear." A tense silence fell, broken by Dr. Mortimer's sharp intake of breath. "You've no proof, Poirot. This is all conjecture." "No," Poirot said, his voice steel. "The proof is in your reactions, your lies. One of you knows the device's secrets too well." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Tomorrow, I reveal the truth. Sleep well, if you can." As the suspects dispersed, their faces etched with fear, Poirot whispered to Japp, "Watch them closely, mon ami. The killer grows restless." The shadows of the manor seemed to pulse, but Poirot's little grey cells were alight, the truth now within reach. Chapter 12. The Reversal Revealed. The drawing-room of Hawthorne Manor was bathed in the pale light of dawn, the fog outside finally lifting to reveal a stark, cold morning. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his posture impeccable, his moustache a beacon of calm authority. The suspects, Victor Hawthorne, Lady Evelyn, Dr. Mortimer, Hastings the butler, and Eliza the maid, sat in a tense semicircle, their eyes fixed on him. Inspector Japp flanked the door, his constables ready, as Poirot prepared to unveil the truth behind Sir Reginald's murder. The backwards footprints, the mirror-script diary, the reversed scream, and the Chronos reversal machine had all pointed to a meticulously staged crime. Now, Poirot's little grey cells had aligned the pieces, and the killer's mask would fall. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice resonant, "the murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne was a performance, a deception to make us believe time itself was the culprit. But Hercule Poirot sees through such tricks. The truth is simple, yet brilliant." He paced, holding up the backward-scrawled note reading EMIT. This note, found in the victim's hand, is not a message but a misdirection. The word is time reversed, a clue to the Chronos device. The footprints leading away from the study window were made by walking backwards, using mirrors to guide the steps. A trick inspired by the 1845 mirror murder of Lord Edmund Victor shifted, his face flushed. "Mirrors? You're saying someone staged all this?" "Précisément," Poirot said, his eyes locking onto Dr. Mortimer. "Docteur, you knew the device's secrets. You envied Sir Reginald's genius, his patents that overshadowed yours. You staged the murder to appear backwards, using the Chronos device to replay the scream at midnight, though it occurred at 11, as Eliza heard." Mortimer's bald head glistened with sweat. "Preposterous! I was in my room." Poirot raised a hand. "No. You had access to the workshop, as Hastings saw. You used the hidden passage to enter the study, stabbed Sir Reginald, and activated the device to create the illusion of a reverse timeline. The footprints? You walked backwards, guided by a mirror you later discarded. The shard Hastings found, etched with C for Chronos." Japp's eyes widened. "You've got evidence, Poirot." Poirot produced a small camera, hidden in the study's bookshelf, discovered during a final search. This, mon ami, was Sir Reginald's precaution. It recorded the murder, and though the footage is reversed, another trick of the device, it shows Dr. Mortimer entering via the passage, dagger in hand, at 11. The scream was captured, then replayed later to confuse the timeline. Mortimer leapt up, his voice shrill. "Lies! That camera proves nothing." Poirot's gaze was steely. "It proves everything, Docteur. Your motive was envy. Your method was science. You sought to steal the Kronos device, but when Sir Reginald refused to share, you killed him, staging the crime to echo the family curse, hoping to pin it on Victor's debts or Lady Evelyn's affair. Lady Evelyn gasped, tears streaming. You monster! Reginald trusted you! Victor clenched his fists, but Poirot continued. The watch, wound backwards, was your final touch. Left in the clearing to reinforce the illusion, but you miscalculated. The camera, the passage's scuff marks, your own nervousness, they betrayed you. Mortimer lunged for the door, but Japp's constables seized him, handcuffs clicking. You're done, Mortimer, Japp growled. Then turned to Poirot. How'd you know about the camera? Poirot smiled faintly. The diary hinted at Sir Reginald's paranoia. He wrote of eyes watching his work. I searched, and voila. He gestured to the camera, its lens glinting. The little grey cells, they never fail. As Mortimer was led away, shouting denials, the room fell silent. Lady Evelyn sobbed softly, and Victor slumped, his anger deflated. Hastings confessed to stealing small items, his face red with shame, but Poirot waved it off. A minor sin, Monsieur Hastings. The true crime is solved. Eliza, trembling, whispered, Is the curse broken, sir? Non, mademoiselle, Poirot said gently. There was no curse, only human greed. He turned to Japp. Mon ami, ensure the Kronos device is secured. Its power is too dangerous for this world. As the suspects dispersed, Poirot stood by the window, the manor's gardens now clear in the morning light. The backwards murder was solved, its illusion shattered by logic. Yet, as he pocketed the emit note, a flicker of doubt lingered. Had all secrets been revealed, or did time still hold one final twist? Chapter 13. Poirot's Little Grey Cells. Triumph. The morning sun broke through the last wisps of fog, bathing Hawthorne Manor in a golden glow that seemed to cleanse the shadows of its secrets. Hercule Poirot sat in the dining room, a cup of steaming tisane before him, his moustache impeccably groomed despite the harrowing days past. The arrest of Dr. Mortimer had lifted the pall of fear, but the manor still hummed with the echoes of the backwards murder. Inspector Japp, nursing a strong tea, scribbled final notes for his report, while the remaining guests, Lady Evelyn, Victor Hawthorne, Hastings the butler, and Eliza the maid, gathered to hear Poirot's closing thoughts. The Kronos reversal machine, now under police guard, sat silent in the workshop, its dangerous potential sealed. Mon ami, Poirot said to Japp, his voice calm, the case of Sir Reginald Hawthorne is solved, yet it teaches us much about the human heart. It seeks to control time, to rewrite its mistakes, but such desires lead only to chaos. Japp nodded, closing his notebook. You've outdone yourself, Poirot. A murder staged backwards, using that blasted machine. I'd never have cracked it. Poirot's eyes twinkled. The little grey cells, they see what others miss. The footprints, the reversed scream, the note Emmett, all were tricks to mimic the 1845 mirror murder, to make us believe in a curse. Dr. Mortimer's envy drove him to kill, to steal the Kronos device, but his cleverness was his undoing. Lady Evelyn, her face drawn but composed, spoke softly. Monsieur Poirot, you've given us peace, though it's a bitter one. Reginald's obsession with that machine, it destroyed him. Poirot inclined his head. Madam, his genius was his tragedy. He sought to master time, but time is a river that flows only forward. His device, I have advised Inspector Japp to destroy it, lest it tempt at others. Victor, subdued for once, cleared his throat. I was a fool, Poirot. My debts, my temper. I gave Mortimer the perfect scapegoat. Thank you for seeing the truth." Poirot's gaze softened. "Monsieur Victor, greed blinds, but you are young. Learn from this. Live forward, not in the shadow of the past." Hastings, standing stiffly, offered a small bow. "I'm sorry for my theft, sir. I'll make amends. You've spared me worse." "Oui, Monsieur Hastings," Poirot said. "Your crimes were small, born of desperation. Serve honestly, and you redeem yourself." Eliza, clutching a tray, whispered, "No curse, then." "The manor's safe now." Poirot smiled gently. "Mademoiselle Eliza, the only curse is fear of the unknown. You are free of it now." As the group dispersed, Japp lingered, sipping his tea. "One thing bothers me, Poirot. That camera footage, clear as day, but reversed. How'd Mortimer pull it off without leaving a trace?" Poirot sipped his tisane, his eyes distant. Mon ami, the Chronos device altered the camera's recording, capturing the murder in reverse as it played within its field. Mortimer entered via the passage, stabbed Sir Reginald at 11, then used the device to replay the scream at midnight. The footprints were his final flourish, walked backwards with a mirror's aid, as I demonstrated. Japp shook his head. "Clever devil! Good thing you're cleverer." Poirot's smile was faint. The little grey cells, they triumph over deception. He rose, adjusting his coat, preparing to depart. As he stepped into the hall, he paused by the backwards ticking clock, now stopped by Japp's orders. Its silence felt like a victory, yet a faint unease lingered. In his pocket, the Emmet note crinkled, and a final entry from Sir Reginald's diary flashed in his mind. A secret remains, locked in time's mirror. Outside, the Rolls-Royce awaited to return him to London. Lady Evelyn and Victor stood at the door, offering quiet thanks. Poirot bowed, his hat in hand. "Adieu, and may you find peace in living forward." As the car rolled away, Poirot gazed at the manor's receding silhouette, its gables stark against the sky. The case was closed, the killer caught, but that final diary entry nagged at him. Had he missed a deeper secret, one Sir Reginald took to his grave? "No matter," he murmured, stroking his moustache. "The little grey cells, they rest, for now." Yet, as the manor faded, a single backwards tick echoed in his mind, a whisper of time's unfinished riddle.